So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to CWU press conference. My name's Chris, head of comms at the CWU. You'll see with me our General Secretary, Dave Ward, and also our Deputy General Secretary, Martin Walsh. You'd have also seen the news of the government agreement on the takeover of Royal Mail with EP Group this morning, and subsequently us announced a further additional agreement on terms and conditions and all sorts of related matters with the EP Group that's been negotiated by the Communication Workers Union. The purpose of today is for Dave to give an update and some background on that, and then Dave and Martin will take any questions you have. So, we'll be probably 10 minutes or so with an intro from Dave, and then we'll probably the point you want to get to, which is answering all of your questions. So, Dave, can I ask you to do your introduction?
Okay. Morning, all. First of all, let me say that the agreement that CWU has reached is subject to ratification of our Executive Council. So at this stage, it's only a negotiators agreement, and we'll be going through those processes. I can't go into every single detail, but I'm going to give you an overview of the circumstances as to why we believe that we need to reach an agreement, and also some of the content of that agreement. I think first of all, we would say that the status quo is just not tenable with Royal Mail. What we've seen in recent years is a board of Royal Mail that have completely and systematically run the company into the ground. They failed their customers on a daily basis, and they failed the workforce and completely alienated the workforce. So you've got a situation at the moment where the company have got no money and there is no future with the status quo. And I would put that to the test of any independent person to really look into what's been happening in this company to understand our view. The second thing is, of course, is the context of this is that Royal Mail is a private company. And we would also say that privatisation and the liberalisation of postal services has failed Royal Mail. But this is what you have to deal with in that reality. And in the full knowledge that we know the government obviously called the bid in under the National Security Act, and have then gone out to get further concessions, further undertakings legally from Kretinsky and his company. Our job is to make sure that we do the best we can to protect our members. So we recognise that there will be legitimate concerns from our members and the country about the future of Royal Mail. But we believe, weighing everything up, that this is the best option to rebuild the company. The government deal, which I'm not sure if the detail of that is out at the moment, but it does give some significant protections against asset stripping. It's stronger than what was in the original offer document. And for us, importantly, for the first time since privatisation, the government have taken a golden share in the future of Royal Mail. And we are very clear that that means that there will be ongoing involvement in the government. One, to make sure that this agreement that we've reached is implemented properly. And two, as part of their sort of consideration and their interest in maintaining UK postal services and the social and economic value that brings. So, we see that as an important development, and it's given us a bit more confidence to then reach the agreement that we've reached. Our deal is very extensive. We believe it's a groundbreaking agreement in the UK. The job security commitments, it means that we have guaranteed no compulsory redundancies through till the end of what will be the biggest change for postal workers if we were to agree that change, which we haven't agreed anything at this stage on USO reform. So that's a very strong guarantee. We wouldn't get that from the current company, and that will be extended once we've done that and once we've got a full and final agreement on USO reform. The agreement also goes on to introduce some legally binding protections. They're not based on a cliff edge, so they don't finish at any particular time, but they'll be reviewed in April 2028. And that gives us a lot more confidence over what Mr. Kretinsky's plans are for the future of the company. So included in that is absolute commitments not to break up Royal Mail, not to sell it off, not to introduce franchising, and crucially for us to ensure that Royal Mail continues as an end-to-end service provider. There are other employee protections around the pension surplus. So you would have seen that the government have protected and ensured that Kretinsky can't touch the pension surplus. We've gone one further in that by ensuring that actually our members will receive some of the funds. Now that surplus at the moment looks like it could be as much as £1.4 billion. And through the introduction of a meaningful stake in the business, for a trust that we're going to introduce, an employee collective benefit trust, funds from that surplus will be distributed subject to the agreement of the independent trustees at the appropriate time. They will go into that trust for the benefit of employees or for the need to reinvest into the future of Royal Mail. We've also resolved a number of outstanding issues. And again, I must impress upon you that we have not agreed USO reform as part of this agreement. That's still to continue. And in fact, getting all the details sorted out in this deal is conditional on us agreeing USO reform. So, we've got further leverage with the company on the future of the USO. But we've agreed some very important changes. You may recall that during the dispute, Royal Mail imposed new terms and conditions for workers. Currently, around about 20,000 workers are on those new terms and conditions, which are significantly inferior to our legacy employees. We've now got an agreement to end that two-tier working arrangement and to equalise pay terms and conditions through the introduction of a new career path, the detail of which we'll work out in due course. For us, what's really important as well is that given that we've had concerns about the way that Royal Mail has been run, this agreement introduces a radical new governance and business model for Royal Mail. And it means that the union and workers will have a greater say over the future direction of the company. And there's a series of changes involved in that will actually be anchored in changes that are going to be made to the articles of association of the company. And then finally, there is a stake now, a meaningful stake in the future for our members through the trust. And that will be based on any dividends that get paid out. 10% of those dividends will go into the trust for employees. So, on the basis of a set of circumstances that we have to deal with, we believe that the agreement we got, which is subject to the ratification of our Executive Council, is in the best interest of our members and the future of UK postal services.
Thank you, Dave. Comprehensive update then. So obviously, this is a press conference. We're more than willing to take any questions you have. So if you just use the raise hand function on Zoom or pop your name in the chat, I'll bring you in. And don't be shy. Dave and Martin have got plenty of time to take your questions. If you have any, if not, if everything's clear, that's fantastic. Graham, you've just unmuted yourself. Did you want to?
Yeah. Is that all right? So I couldn't find the raised hand. But anyway, Hi, morning, gents.
Morning.
Just on you said you got a lot of reassurance about there not being a breakup of the group. I noticed that it's only for at least 3 years. There's going to be no change of control of a GLS or Royal Mail. What assurances? How can you be so confident that after that there's not going to be, as you talked about, sort of a cliff edge, or even beyond that 3 years, that there's not going to be some sort of breakup?
So look, no one can ever guarantee, Graham, what the future holds. There's no company that's facing probably the challenges Royal Mail are, because the company, as we recognise, is operating now in a permanent sort of changed world of communications, and it's a rapidly evolving post and logistics structure. Royal Mail is in decline. So we have to be recognising that the way forward is to get investment in the company, diversify products and services, see if we can grow revenue, and see if we can grow jobs. So we have to get that bit right. What we've got in the agreement, when you see the full extent of it, will be enforceable protections. Yes, they'll be based on a review with a view to continuing those commitments set against, obviously, what the circumstances are and an assessment of the business and the market at that point in time. But the onus is on them to take them away. And so the confidence we have is in our own members, is in the strength of the union, to make sure that under the terms that are written, it's heavily loaded towards extending those commitments. So unless Royal Mail was in dire straits, or unless like the very existence of the company was threatened at that point, and that all depends in truth, whether or not we can grow this business by diversifying the services. We're confident we're not going to get any better than that at this point in time.
Okay, thanks. Can I ask just one other one, just on your the personal dealings with Mr. Kretinsky? Not many people have had that that time in the room with him. How did you find him on a sort of personal level and as a negotiator?
Well, look, we've met him, I think it's about 3 times now, face to face. And look, it's not about how we find him. I think it's up to him. And this agreement is weighed very clearly in that way to earn the trust of the workforce and the country. And that's another reason why we're confident, because there's going to be so much scrutiny over Mr. Kretinsky going forward and what his ambitions are. And don't forget, he's already said that he wants to own Royal Mail for the rest of his life. I think he's got to earn the trust of the workforce. We'll see how that goes. I mean, he was personable, very personable. And, truthfully, compared to negotiating with the current board of Royal Mail, who I think have given up and have lost sight on what the future, they've got no vision for the future of Royal Mail. It has to be seen against that context.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Cheers, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else?
Hi, Jasper Jolly from The Guardian here, if you can.
Hey, Jasper, yeah. Go ahead,
Hi. Just connected to that, I just wanted to ask about, does it seem like Royal Mail, Kretinsky is a better bet as an owner than what we've got at the moment? Because, looking back at his past dealings, it was kind of private equity style. I just wonder how you weigh up those different ownership pathways.
Yeah, so I think that what we've looked at in the agreement is the reality of the options that are in front of us. And that's what you have to do if you're a trade union that represents postal workers. You have to consider the options. There's no easy option on the future of Royal Mail because the company's in structural decline. But set against where the Royal Mail board are currently versus possibly an option we would prefer, which is renationalisation. But any owner of the company is going to face these challenges. And we believe that, this is, in the circumstances that Royal Mail is facing, this is the best option. Doesn't mean to say that we're sitting here saying, we wanted this to happen. The reality is we've got to deal with this situation. And the agreement we've got, I think when you see the full extent of it, I think you will recognise that it puts Mr. Kretinsky in a place where, he's got to work with us for the company to be successful. But it also ensures that there are serious protections against asset stripping.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Jasper. I can see someone's unmuted home iPhone. If you let us know.
Yeah. Hi, it's Rob Lee from The Times. Can you hear me?
Hey, Rob.
Hi, Rob.
Morning. As you say, this is yet to be ratified and we'll see the details at some stage. Does this agreement have any form of no strike agreement in it?
Absolutely not, but I'll let Martin tell you.
No, there's no commitment to no strike in there. There's legal obligations in terms of outsourcing, no outsourcing, franchising, a range of things. Our postal executive are due to meet this afternoon. And if they ratify it, we will be communicating it at some stage tomorrow.
Okay. And I was going to say, how much pressure did you come on from the government? I don't mean the word pressure, but the communications with the government in terms of getting everyone on board and you to agree to this was what? What form of dialogue did you have?
Well, we've had good access to the government for several weeks now, and prior to that, so we can understand the direction that's been taken here. Because this is a private company, the truth is that these type of takeover bids will happen. At that point, you want to talk to the government, you want to make sure that they're getting an agreement that's stronger than what was in the offer document. And there's no doubt about that. And what I would say to you is our position has been not to come under pressure from the government, but to be truthful, to put the government under pressure to ensure that they get the right deal if this is going to go through. And that means their ongoing involvement. So, taking a golden share and some of the other stuff that you'll see that's in the agreement, that means they will be involved on an ongoing basis. I think that that's the best platform that the union could get for a potential renationalisation in the future if this doesn't work out.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Rob. Did you have anything else, Rob?
Just on that golden share, is this kind of like the fact? Is this the binding part of this agreement? I.e., if Kretinsky and his people start mucking about, that basically the government can step in?
I don't think it's phrased like that. I believe the government agreement runs to about 35 pages. It's obviously full of legal drafting and text. So you'll have to look at that. I would have thought it should be available fairly soon.
Yeah.
But what it does do, the political context of it, is that they cannot sit on the side going forward.
Yeah.
And if you consider what we've had to put up with since privatisation, where you couldn't even get to see a Tory government. Ministers wouldn't even respond to your letters when you were raising concerns about the universal service. For us, we'd always want more, but there is no doubt that this is a very strong involvement of the government going forward, and politically in particular, they won't be able to sit away from any future developments.
Yeah, great. Sorry, I just got one last quick question. I just completely wanted to understand what the situation with the pension surplus is. Are you suggesting that there will be some form of dividend or cash available to your members or to those in the pension scheme from this surplus?
So there's two pension schemes. One is called a care scheme, career average earnings scheme, that's closed. And there's a cash balance scheme that's closed that's recently been changed into the CDC scheme that's coming. What we know to be true is that the pension surplus is likely to be over £1 billion. Now, our concern was that was one of the reasons why perhaps Mr. Kretinsky wanted to buy Royal Mail. We've boxed that off. One, the government have boxed it off in terms of some of that money going up to the parent company or to Kretinsky's company. But more importantly, we have secured a commitment ongoing, no review to it, that for as long as he's the owner of Royal Mail, that money, subject to the agreement of the trustee board, which is always what has to happen, can only be split between benefits for the employees or reinvestment into the future of Royal Mail. So we're very pleased having got that.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Dave.
That's all right. Anyone else want to come in at this moment? Jasper, you've unmuted again?
Yeah, hi. Could I just ask two ones, if I may? Sorry if I missed this in the first couple of minutes, but did Kretinsky give you any indication of his business model beyond, the one thing I've got so far is the word lockers. Is there anything else that he has indicated? And second of all, I just wanted to check if you're confident that the undertakings are going to be binding.
Martin?
Yeah, in terms of the first thing, his locker banks and home delivery is definitely something he believes is a growth area. There are several other growth areas, plus there is going to be universal service reform next year regardless of who owns the company. So there's a number of things we're going to have to deal with, but growth, this industry does not survive if we don't grow more parcels and we don't grow more business. And that's something we will work with Daniel Kaczynski and EP with.
What the agreement includes, to build on Martin's point there, is a commitment to introduce within 6 months a new business plan growth strategy, which we will jointly design. And where we see a difference between the current board and Kaczynski is that we believe he does recognise that the trust that postal workers have on the doorstep and Royal Mail's infrastructure is actually a competitive advantage. And we think that some of the ideas we've talked about with him, I think he sees the opportunities here to do some perhaps different things. We would like to see Royal Mail developing into an organisation that becomes like an access point for people across the UK into the NHS in a better way than they treat the NHS at the moment with the service. And lots of other ideas that we've got about adding social and economic value to the UK in local areas, local services and regional services. So we've had that discussion with him. On the face of it, he seems to have more ambition about the future than the current board.
Thanks. And on the undertakings and whether you have confidence?
On the undertakings the government have got, you obviously have to direct that to the government, but they are legally binding undertakings. And for us, the undertakings we've got around, the direction of the company are legally binding, enforceable in law. They are subject to review every 3 years with a view to extending them. So the onus is on changing that. And what I've said to you before, you could put a cliff edge in, which we don't believe is the right way of approaching this. We believe the right way is to keep it going, establish the framework, and deal with those next issues at that point in time from a position of strength.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jasper. Anyone else? Any final sort of questions? Oliver?
Hi, yeah, Oliver from
first and then Bernie.
Oliver from the Financial Times. Good to see you again, Dave. Firstly, I just wanted to clarify what you were saying in terms of what you've agreed on compulsory redundancies. I understand in the original agreement, there was only quite a limited commitment to not make any compulsory redundancies beyond next year. So I was wondering what the improved commitment you've got on that is. Like how long is he committing not to make any redundancies?
Okay, so the commitment that we've got in the agreement, which we think is better for us and better for our members, is that whatever happens on the USO, whatever change is introduced, right through to the full deployment of that agreement, it will be the biggest change if we agree it, and we haven't agreed it yet, that we've seen in the recent history of the company. There will be no compulsory redundancies. That is not a time-limited thing because obviously it's linked to the reality of what happens. We don't see much prospect of that being fully deployed until probably towards the end or late summer of 2026. And beyond that, he's committed to agreeing a new long-term job security agreement. Look, our view is if you actually look at Royal Mail, the position that it's got itself in, where people are leaving in droves because of the way they're being treated, where new entrants come in on worse terms and conditions and don't stay in the company, we don't actually have a lot of major concerns that no compulsory redundancies, is suddenly going to be an impossible situation, even in the future, because there'll be natural wastage. And obviously, we're going to model what the USO reform looks like. So, we're pleased with that commitment. I think to believe that you're going to get guarantees, forever and a day is unrealistic given the circumstances that the company's facing though.
Mm. Sorry, just to clarify, so the current agreement is no compulsory redundancies until USO is reformed?
No, it's not. the current agreement is the biggest change will be fully deployed with no compulsory redundancies. That's very important to us, and at that point there's a commitment to then extend that once we've seen that situation. But can I just say on the USO reform, you'll see when there's a section in the agreement that talks about that. That's being discussed. Martin may want to talk to you about some of that with Royal Mail currently. But we haven't agreed anything on USO reform. Mr. Kretinsky has agreed that all of the detail of these issues has to be worked out, including a pay deal has to be agreed. And all of that is conditional on us moving forward with USO reform. So we've got a lot of leverage still in the talks on USO reform.
And it's important to remember Ofcom are not going to make a decision on the USO until the summer of 2025. So our commitment of no compulsory redundancies is linked to the full deployment, which will be sometime, my assumption, around late 26.
Okay, so just to clarify this explicitly, the commitment now is no redundancies as a result of USO reform.
Yes.
And secondly, kind of what reforms to USO would you accept? Kind of what's the furthest you're willing to go?
So what we're discussing with Royal Mail currently is to run 37 delivery units as a pilot for USO. So on first class, it will be delivered 6 days a week to every single address. The non-priority items, like second class and downstream access, will be delivered Monday to Friday, every other day to an address. And that's what we're going to pilot sometime in February and March 25.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Dave. Bernie, you've got a question.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks. Bernie from the Morning Star. Just on the loss of market share to gig economy couriers like Amazon, do you think that's the elephant in the room here when it comes to this deal that the government struck? And does it make you more hopeful that the fact that they have struck such a deal, that they'd address that issue?
I think the issue of whether or not Royal Mail becomes a gig economy employer has been at the heart of pretty much every dispute we've had over the last 10 years. It's always been our concern that what Royal Mail really want to do, the current board, is basically separate parcels from letters. The letters are declining, so that part of the business would wither on the vine. And the growth areas, we've always believed, and we know this to be true, that they wanted to move that into perhaps a separate branded parcel courier company, just like all of the others. What we've secured in this agreement is that Royal Mail will not operate as a gig economy employer, and that there will be no plans to introduce, no agreement to bring in what we call owner drivers, which is the predominant employment model in the rest of the sector, into Royal Mail for the future. These are important commitments, and we believe that with the government backing that up with the protections that they've achieved, we think we're in the best possible position to deal with that situation.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have anyone else who wants to ask a question before we close off the press conference? You feel free to unmute yourself and bring yourself in. If not, I'll ask Martin and Dave to sum up for a couple of moments.
Okay.
Martin first, Dave.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Martin, you sum up first.
Yeah, look, we're obviously due this afternoon to meet our postal executive, and we hope to have a decision later today. We're obviously going to communicate that with our branches, our senior field officials, and our members at some stage tomorrow. We believe this is a very good agreement. It rebuilds Royal Mail after a period where we believe the board had given up and didn't want to grow the business. It's crucial that we look at USO reform and we grow this industry and we rebuild Royal Mail in the right way for the members, customers and the whole society of the UK.
Thank you, Martin. Dave?
Yeah, I think what I would say is that, if you guys accept, and often when we're in dispute, the media are the first to tell us that we are anti-modernisation and that the company is facing, massive challenges. We've always recognised that. What we've never had is a leadership of Royal Mail that's got any ambition for the future. So as I said to you, they've got no money at the moment. They're still loss-making. The conditions for the success of Royal Mail really are three things. One, that we get the workforce back on board, and that's never going to happen under the current leadership of Royal Mail. Two, that there's serious investment into the workforce and in the infrastructure of the company. And three, that we actually have a proper plan to use the competitive advantage that Royal Mail has through the infrastructure that goes to every town, village, rural area, city, every day of the week, to build something that can grow revenue. And we're confident that if the leadership of Royal Mail under Kretinsky want to seriously look at that for the first time, rather than just, let the business wither on the vine, then we can make a go of this. But we're not underestimating that challenge. And in the circumstances, with the government still, which you need to look at as well, and the agreement we've got, we think we've got the best possible chance of securing the future in the interest of our members and the public and users of Royal Mail.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Martin. Thank you to everyone for joining our press conference. We'll leave it there, but you can contact us at pressofficer@cwu.org if you want any one-to-one interviews with the guys. So that's
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.